Hey everyone, welcome to another edition of Power Core Productions and Podcastings. I'm your host, Jerron Harrington, back to hit you with another video. And today, we're going to be continuing Boruto, Naruto Yokai, What If Sasuke Uchiha Was a Girl? The Academy Arc, Part 2. As always, if you're a fan of today's video and everything else that we have on the channel, then please don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, share, and hit that bell for post notifications so you can stay up to date on everything that is Power Core Productions and Podcastings that has to come out now and in the future. As we now enter into the next generation of this story, we now see our new characters taking shape and form in the world that is around them. In this story, you'll see that while the more things change, the more things actually end up staying the same. Now, this version of Boruto and this version of Sarada won't quite be like the ones that you are familiar with. I've decided to take liberties with the characters in this story to tell something that I believe will be different and unique in its own way. While I still want to be true and faithful to the source material, with this world that I'm creating, I want to build its foundation on something that's a lot more unique for itself than what's in the original story. That's not to say that Boruto won't have his faults or his flaws, like all characters should, but I don't want them to be the primary focus. Instead of trying to do a slow burn, I want to do more of a 180 with the Boruto character. I want to have some traits and qualities from the original, some good and some bad, but I also want to put my own spin on things. And with Sarada, that'll be with a similar case as well. And also with newer characters, as well as older ones that we'll have in this story as well. As we continue with this saga, you'll see the many trials and tribulations that will befall our new and old heroes alike. But you'll see how when they come together, they are able to overcome those various flaws. Do enjoy as we continue Boruto, Naruto Yokai, What If Sasuke Uchiha Was a Girl? The Academy Arc, Part 2. As always, sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. In Konoha, there is a place known as the Ninja Academy. Through their halls, many of Konoha's greatest shinobi have emerged. But now, as we enter into the new age, a new dawn, the Ninja Academy now stands for much more than what it used to mean. Not only is it a place where young and aspiring shinobi can learn and study in the ways of ninjutsu, but it is also a place of cultured learning, in which many opportunities can be opened for all, and many can discover the path that they wish to walk upon. Our story begins with Boruto and Sarada. After dropping off Jiraiya at Sakura's daycare center, the two made their way to class. To say that it was lively would be an understatement. Both Boruto and Sarada seeing many of their friends, many of whom were children of parents who were also friends of theirs. As they made their way inside, Sarada would sit with Chocho Akamichi, the daughter of Choji Akamichi and Karui Akamichi. There was Riho Inuzuka, along with her young pup, Ake. She was the daughter of Sakura Inuzuka and Kiba Inuzuka. And then there was Sumire, the class rep. In the meanwhile, Boruto would sit with his friends, Shikadai Nara, as well as Hoki Hatake. As they sat with one another, Boruto would look towards Hoki, as he asked, "Hey man, you don't have, like your father? So why are you always wearing a bandana over your left eye?" "It's just something I do, Boruto. No need to worry about it." "Yeah, but..." Boruto just decided to let it go, since there was no real reason to ask, since he was never going to get the answer he was looking for. As the three sat together, they lamented how school had been going over the first few weeks. Everything seemed relatively fine for the most part. Shino-sensei was actually pretty cool, although a bit too mysterious. They could hardly ever see his face. Between his coat that covered the lower side of his face, his sunglasses, and his trench coat and hoodie, and his headband covering his forehead, they had no idea what Shino-sensei even looked like for the most part. He was just someone full of mystery. Although, all the same, class was simple for the most part. Unlike in years past, where learning ninjutsu and being trained in the art of the shinobi was the primary focus of the institute, now things had taken a much different turn. Here, the students studied more than just ninjutsu. They studied other elements. They studied other type of subjects, learning general studies and things of that nature. That way, if a student decided that being a ninja wasn't for them, then they could pursue other careers and facilities. Ninjutsu had taken a much different approach in the world now, and it was used and applied in much different ways. Naruto believed that in order to fulfill the true dream of the Sage of Six Paths, he had to use his ability in ninjutsu for more than just warfare and fighting. Just like in the days of old, when ninjutsu was used to help build and create, instead of for killing and destroying. He wanted to implement a similar structure in Konoha, and other villages took to adopting a similar mindset. Ninjutsu was used in everyday facilities. If there was a place that ran on coal and they needed fire, fire-style ninjutsu was used. When it came to actually putting out fires, there was actually a fire department made with people who had an affinity for water-style ninjutsu. There were those who could help clean up debris with earth-style ninjutsu. Empowering electrical grids with electrical ninjutsu, or lightning release, was also a key factor as well. As the world continued to modernize and grow, times were beginning to change, and the people were changing with them. Although, not everyone agreed with the change. As Shino would start with class assessment, the class would go outside and run through an obstacle course. As he took note, there were many standouts. Boruto, Sarada, Momo, Metal, Hoki. Those five in particular were standouts among everyone, even some of the best. Although that wasn't really too shocking, given who their lineage were. Boruto and Sarada being the children of Naruto and Satomi Uchiha Uzumaki. Momo, the daughter of Neji Hyuga and Tenten Hyuga. Metal Lee Hyuga, the son of Rock Lee and Hinata Hyuga. And then there was Hoki Hatake, the son of the vice principal Anko Hatake and his father, the former Hokage, the sixth Kakashi Hatake. But even for them, there was one that stood out above them all. A student named Iwabe Yuno. After the assessment, the class would stop to have lunch. Boruto was sitting with his friends, and they were going to be making their way back to the classroom. As they did so, Boruto would open the door, followed by Shikadai and Hoki. As they made their way in, they would hear a loud crash as they saw a young boy with glasses holding a tiny computer being thrown to the ground. The boy tried to get back up on his feet, but they saw someone towering above him. A boy wearing baggy clothes and a beanie, holding a staff on his shoulders as he looked down upon him. I'm sorry. I didn't know anyone else was here. It's always the same. The taller boy grabbed the smaller one by the collar as he held him in the air. No matter what the year, I'm always stuck with you weaklings. Just what the hell are you doing here in the first place? I'm just here to be a shinobi. And why is that? Let me guess. Because your daddy wanted you to be a shinobi, huh? You probably never used ninjutsu or chakra a day in your life. And yet you just think you can stroll in here, huh? Pathetic. If you want to be a bookworm and a nerd, why don't you just save it for somewhere else? And get that weak crap out of here. Boruto would rush in immediately, stopping the altercation as the boy fell to the ground. Hey, are you alright? Dude, what's your problem? You don't have to be such a jerk. Well. If it isn't the Uchiha Uzumaki, Boruto. The crowd of students started to gather into the room to witness what was happening. Sarada, along with Chocho and Ryo, and Momo walked in as well, everyone seeing what was taking place. So, you finally arrived. I've heard a lot about you. What's that supposed to mean? It means that maybe things won't be so boring around here anymore. A few of the students in the back merely rolled their eyes. Iwabe was about to go on his tirade once again. They had heard about it for a while now. The boy who was known as the ultimate flunky. He had already failed the graduation exam 2 times. They thought he was looking for a third. Some wished he would have just been expelled already. Others wished they would have just graduated him so he could move on and stop torturing everyone else. I can't stand weakness. It's pathetic. You know, not too long ago, our village was in a great war. Back then, only the strong mattered. You know that what the old curriculum for this school was? All you had to do was be able to make a damn clone. But me, I can do much more than that. And yet I'm held back with these pathetic weaklings year after year. People like you and everyone else just enjoy this time of peace. Well, I'm here to tell you that it ain't gonna last forever. Yeah? And so what? You think that you just being an asshole to everyone's really gonna make a difference? Iwabe turned as he looked towards Boruto, anger shining across his face. I don't want to hear it from you, especially from you. The Hokage's brat, the son of the 2 heroes of the last great war, Naruto and Satomi. The only reason why you're here is because of who your daddy and mommy are, and because of what's in your blood. Nothing more, nothing less. But as for me, I've had to make my way from out of the gutter to get to where I am. The only thing I value in this life is strength, because it's the only thing you can rely on. The strong get to do what they want, and the weak will submit. That is the way of the world. There's more to life than just power. Oh yeah? Will you see any weaklings being Hokage around here? I don't think so. To be Hokage, you have to be strong. Strength is the only thing that matters. But yet, because of this damn peaceful era that I was thrust into, my strength isn't recognized at all. If I had been born 10 years earlier, if I had been born maybe 30 years earlier, my strength would be recognized and revered worldwide. I'd be on the front lines right now. There's no telling how many kills I'd have under my belt. Boruto looked at him in disgust. Killing didn't prove strength. It didn't prove anything. Anyone could kill. But Boruto and Sarada, as well as Jiraiya, took the lessons that they learned from their parents. Sure, they were the strongest in the world. Anyone would know that. But they didn't flaunt their power around or use it to oppress the weak. And for Boruto, to hear Iwabe try to make such a comparison, it only pissed him off. Just shut the hell up. What was that, weakling? Iwabe brought his staff down, but Boruto caught it in his hand. You think that's just about power? Huh? Well, what's that supposed to mean? You think my father just belittles and bullies everyone because he's the strongest? Don't ever make that comparison about my family ever again. Boruto pushed back at Iwabe, now irritated. My parents, they're more than that. They're larger than life. They're bigger than anything you would ever know. They have great power. But you know what? They don't use it to pick on the weak. You are nothing like my father. So don't you dare make that comparison ever again. Iwabe looked at him, now irritated, angered that this little brat thought that he could stand up to him. Okay, Hokage's brat. Since you think you're so tough, why don't you take me on? I've been sick of beating on these weaklings for so long anyway. As Iwabe looked around the room, his eyes fell upon Sarada, then Hoki, and even Momo and Metal. But I've heard about you guys. Who your parents are? That means you guys have to be strong. Especially the Hokage's twin brats. If I can't be recognized for my strength by beating up on these weaklings, as you put it, then why don't I make a name for myself? Why don't I put the Hokage's son in the hospital? You and me, training hall, right now. Sumire, the class rep, would nervously step forward. She would note that they only had 15 minutes until lunch was over, and that they couldn't do something so reckless. However, the rest of the crowd were looking on intently. They wanted to see this fight. As Boruto looked up to Iwabe, he accepted his challenge. Sarada was just as irritated as well with Iwabe, but even she knew better than to try to pick a fight. She wanted to step in and stop them, although Chocho remarked that they were just going to get them both expelled in the first place. Riho remarked that her brother could really be a little dense sometimes. However, Momo was just laughing. Sarada would look to Momo with a deadpan expression, asking why she could be laughing at a time like this. Momo remarking that she loved when Boruto did something stupid. It was hilarious. But still, even she wanted to see what he was capable of. And so, the match was set, and the class made their way to the training hall. As they gathered around in the spectator stands, as down below, Iwabe stood to face against Boruto Uchiha Uzumaki. Shikadai only shook his head in annoyance as Hoki stood next to him, along with Inojin, as well as the young boy that Iwabe was picking on named Denki. Denki was worried that Boruto was going to get in trouble and it was all going to be his fault. Deep down, a part of him knew that he shouldn't be here. He knew he wasn't strong enough to compete with everyone else. It only made him lament in his weakness. However, Shikadai noted that Boruto was just being Boruto. This was something that no one could stop. Inojin remarked that he was just being plain stupid, then that he really didn't have the brain to think something that convoluted. And Hoki, well, he wasn't sure of what to think at this point in time. He and Boruto had grown up together and they were friends good enough, and even he shared the same sentiments with Boruto. Although, honestly, he just didn't really care to deal with Iwabe and just chose to ignore him. But still, if someone was going to put a stop to him in his antics, at least it was Boruto. As the class watched, Boruto and Iwabe would begin their match with one another. When it came to overall strength, Iwabe had even Boruto beat. The boy may not have been good at academics, but when it came to fighting and strength, he was in a class of his own. Everyone watching as the fight continued. Iwabe mocking Boruto constantly, telling him to show off that power of his. If he was really descendant of the Uchiha, then he should have the Sharingan. Show it off. Show what he was capable of, as Iwabe continued to torment. However, Boruto couldn't. None of his siblings had unlocked their Sharingans, and there was no guarantee if they would or wouldn't. But still, that wasn't going to stop him. Iwabe would continue to have the upper hand in strength. Even Chocho would remark that even though Boruto was skilled, he didn't have the power to match with him, and that he was probably just going to lose. Sarada was about to speak up for her brother, when out of nowhere Momo would speak. In that quick moment, they saw that she had a serious look on her face, as they all watched the match. Momo remarked that Boruto wasn't going to lose. And Chocho asked just how was she so sure, as she ate on her bag of chips. Momo remarked that for as long as she had known Boruto, he was many things. An idiot, a dumbass, everything in between. And she had no problem making fun of him at his expense. But for all the times that she had sparred against him, she knew one thing for sure. Boruto never gave up, and she knew what type of power he really had. And seeing what Iwabe was capable of right now, she knew without a doubt that Boruto could win. And she meant it. As they watched onward, Boruto would seemingly continue to take the loss, as Iwabe continued to beat down upon him, matching his ninjutsu with his own. Boruto using the substitution jutsu and the transformation jutsu, along with his shadow clones. Iwabe would counter with his own earth-style clones, as well as matching him with his own knowledge of ninjutsu. As they continued their fight though, Boruto started to time his tricks more and more. The columns all around in the stadium, Boruto would duck and dodge behind each one. Iwabe commenting that he couldn't afford to duck and to hide forever, as Boruto leaped from behind the last column as he jumped towards Iwabe, who would grab him by the throat and slam him into the ground, remarking that this was just pathetic. However, from out of nowhere, behind each of the other columns, more Borutos would jump out at once as they ran towards Iwabe. What Iwabe hadn't noticed was that at each column that Boruto ran behind, he left a shadow clone, and now all the clones would jump up and gang on Iwabe at once, Iwabe managed to take out 2 of them, but there were still 3 more that remained. Boruto, now using a technique that he had learned from his mother, Satomi. The first Boruto would kick Iwabe into the air, while 2 more would throw in kicks of their own, knocking him up further, while the original Boruto ran up on the backs of his clones. Metal Lee would be surprised by this maneuver, remarking that it was very similar to the primary Lotus. And he wondered just how much had Boruto studied. This technique was known as the Uzumaki Barrage, although you could say it also paid homage to another technique, that of the Lion's Barrage. Of course, his father had to admit that he technically did copy it from his wife, but Boruto took the best aspects of both attacks. One half from his father using the clones, and the other from his mother using the dancing leaf shadow, combined with a series of kicks and coordinated assault, knocking Iwabe to the ground. As the boys stood back up, Boruto asking if he had had enough, Iwabe remarked that it was far from over. As he clasped his hands together, he would knock them to the ground, causing a massive shake as he used the earth release technique, causing massive, jagged rocks to come spiraling towards Boruto, who only was barely able to dodge at the last moment. If they were using elemental ninjutsu now, then it was time for Boruto to show what he could do. As he ran through the hand signs, he would take a breath of air before he unleashed the fire-style fireball jutsu that went hurling straight towards Iwabe. However, he ran through his own hand signs just as quickly, as he created an earth-style mud wall to block against the flame. As he did so, he noticed the power behind the fire, as it broke through some of the wall, but the wall still held up. Within the smoke, Iwabe would see something flying towards him. He attacked thinking it was Boruto, but in actuality, it was a jacket flying with a kunai. As he had attacked it from one side, what he didn't realize was that Boruto was on the other, as he jumped from behind and kicked him into the wall. Everyone was amazed at what they were seeing. The fact that someone was actually holding up their own against Iwabe at this moment. As they continued to watch though, Iwabe became more and more annoyed. He was done playing around. He grabbed his staff and stabbed it into the earth, causing the ground to shake once again. As he pulled his staff out, at the end of it was a hammer-like shape of earth. He used his hammer and slammed it into the ground, and as he did so, the earth itself began to shake and move and morph, as Boruto started to be hit by various columns of earth that appeared from the ground, before Iwabe would slam his staff back into his back once again. Iwabe continued his beatdown on Boruto, now taking the fight as serious as possible, looking at this as being his way of ending the brat once and for all. Sarada would feel an immense swelling. It was faint, but her eyes began to puff. She could feel an urge coming over her. She was prepared to jump over the railings to go save her brother, but Momo stopped her. She looked towards Momo, now angered, remarking that if she didn't do something soon, Boruto was going to die, or something that she couldn't just live with herself. However, Momo would stop and tell her that Boruto was still fighting, and that things weren't as hopeless, and that they just had to watch. As they did so, they would hear a familiar voice. From the other side of the arena, they saw Shino Sensei As Shino made his way forward, both Boruto and Iwabe would stop. Even for Iwabe, to see the teacher, he had become immensely worried. Shino would scold the two of them, remarking that they were supposed to be behaving, and that this unofficial fight was very unbecoming of Boruto. He also remarked that Iwabe was just once again causing trouble, the two of them now standing in attention. However, as Shino walked towards Boruto, Iwabe would turn, holding his head down. And that was a mistake, because out of nowhere, Shino Sensei would grab Iwabe by the collar as he kneed him deep in the gut, causing him to cough and fall to the ground grasping for air, before being hit by a barrage of attacks once again. Iwabe was absolutely stunned, not just physically by the assault, but also mentally. He knew he was a screw-up, but he didn't think that the sensei would beat down on him. As he was coughing and spitting on the ground, Iwabe looked up to Shino Sensei, asking what the meaning of this was. However, Shino Sensei, even for the faintest of moments, with his face being covered, would smirk as he transformed, and Iwabe and everyone else was shocked, because it wasn't Shino Sensei, it was Boruto the whole time. Everyone looked on in amazement. They didn't think that Boruto would be that clever, to transform a clone into the teacher, to throw Iwabe off guard and to get the upper hand. However, Hoki would remark an old saying that his father often told him, that a ninja must see through deception. And another familiar voice would agree with him, as Hoki, Shikadai, Inojin, and Dinky would turn around to see Vice Principal Anko laying back in the seats eating on some dango. The boys were absolutely shocked to see that the Vice Principal was here. And then it suddenly dawned on them that they were all seriously in trouble. However, Vice Principal Anko assured them that that wasn't anything to worry about, since she was on break right now, so whatever these kids did was on them. Hoki merely shook his head at the laziness of his own mother, but she remarked that she wasn't being lazy, she was being thoughtful. And besides, she wanted to see how things would play out. As Iwabe tried to stand back on his feet, the clone disappearing as Boruto stood over him, he would hold out his hand, telling Iwabe that things didn't have to be this way, that if he wanted to change, then he could. Iwabe said nothing, and Boruto merely turned around, preparing to leave. However, Iwabe was about to go in for a cheap shot. Holding onto his staff, he had it aimed directly at the back of Boruto's skull, and he was prepared to crack it over his head. Sarada saw this, but before anyone else could jump in to stop Iwabe, from out of nowhere, standing in between the two boys, was Momo, her eyes glaring at Iwabe, as she had activated her Byakugan. She hit him in 4 points, causing him to drop his staff and fall to the ground. Even Boruto was taken aback by this. He didn't even sense the attack coming. He knew if he had been hit, it would have been the end of him. But the fact that Momo had been able to see it and got there so quickly, it truly left him speechless. Boruto tried to ask why Momo had jumped in the way that she did, but Momo remarked that the match was over and Boruto won anyway, so someone taking a cheap shot on him wasn't really cool with her. Besides, if anyone was going to crack him over the skull, it was going to be her. This ticked him off a little bit, but everyone would be shocked when Vice Principal Anko made her way to the middle of the arena, telling all of them to hurry up and get to class since it was about to start. However, she would take Boruto and Iwabe to her office. As everyone left, one would make quick eye contact with Momo. That was metal. As the two of them looked at one another, they smirked, impressed to see what had transpired. With the match now being declared over, Boruto and Iwabe would be taken to the Vice Principal's office. Now, under normal circumstances, she could give them suspension, maybe even expulsion. But she was actually willing to overlook it. That was, if they were going to show change. Both Boruto and Iwabe asked what she meant by this. First, she asked Iwabe if he understood now what true strength was. Iwabe remarking, but keeping to himself. However, she would explain that, from now on, if he truly wanted to be stronger, and truly wanted to show what he was capable of, instead of blaming the time that he was born in, or blaming everyone else for his faults, he should take more accountability. Instead of skipping class or picking on the weak, he should improve himself and not cause so much trouble. And as she looked towards Boruto, while she understood that he was trying to defend a classmate, fighting without proper supervision was still against the rules. And that's why, for their punishment, the two boys would have to work together after school for the next month doing cleanup duty. It really wasn't what either of them expected, and doing cleanup duty for the whole school, well, that didn't sound too great either. But still, it was better than the alternative. And so, they accepted their punishments and went about their business. The next day, as class was about to be started, Boruto would be sitting with Shikadai and Hoki. Dinky had arrived, and he thanked Boruto for helping him. And he remarked that he hoped that he could improve and be like him someday. Boruto encouraged the boy, telling him that if he worked hard, then it wasn't impossible. He just had to have more confidence and believe in himself. And if he needed help, he could just ask anytime. As the doors opened, someone that no one was expecting also made his way in. It was Iwabe. He sat in his seat, sitting behind Boruto. The two of them looking at one another. Iwabe trying his best to ignore Boruto, but Boruto simply laughed, stating that he guessed he decided that class wasn't so dumb after all. Iwabe simply told him to shut up, and everyone else in class would laugh a bit also. As Chino-sensei made his way inside, everyone would stand in attention, as the next lesson was about to be taught. In this era, as a new spring was slowly approaching the horizon, the mighty oak that watched over the village served as its strength and protection. But under this mighty oak, new buds were beginning to sprout. The buds of the next generation that would soon come to bloom. This concludes Boruto, Naruto Yokai, What If Sasuke Uchiha Was a Girl, the Acedemy arc, Part 2. If you enjoyed today's video and everything else that we have on the channel, then please don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, share, and hit that bell for post notifications so you can stay up to date on everything that is PowerCore Productions and Podcasting, so that's to come out now and in the future. Stay tuned this Sunday as we will continue part 3 of What If Sasuke Uchiha Was a Girl, Boruto, Naruto Yokai, the Academy arc. But anyway, this is going to do it for the end of today's video. I'm Javon Harrington with Power Core Productions and Podcastings. Signing off, and I'll see you next time.